It's not exactly controversial to say that the Star Wars sequel trilogy is a bit of a mess. It stands as a testament as to why passing the baton to a new storyteller for each movie of a trilogy, with no overarching vision, is probably not a great idea. Force Awakens was action nostalgia. The Last Jedi was subverting expectations for the sake of subverting expectations. And The Rise of Skywalker was made as a course correction in order to placate an outraged fanbase. The result is a trilogy finale that tried to please everyone and satisfied just about nobody. Even The Rise of Skywalker's biggest defenders typically describe the movie as okay, which, in my opinion, is generous. And even so, when your movie is the culmination of a multi-decade spanning 9-movie saga, just okay is pretty disappointing. But I don't want to be too harsh on this movie because it was basically set up for failure. After all, since The Last Jedi was so divisive, is there any way this movie could have satisfied both its detractors and its defenders? Hello everyone, my name is Maxwell, and welcome to Never the End, the show where I overanalyze and compare all things geek. Today, we're going to be going over The Rise of Skywalker and how the movie could have been saved. Now, I'm not going to rewrite this entire film, but I am going to go over two major changes that could have vastly improved the movie that we actually got. First and foremost, let's talk about what is arguably the most infamous line in this movie.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
That line does not get better with age. The Rise of Skywalker features the return of overarching Star Wars antagonist Darth Sidious. One of the primary issues with this movie is the sudden and unexplained return of Emperor Palpatine after his seemingly very final death in Return of the Jedi. Now, apparently, if you've read the extended universe material, there is an actual explanation regarding the contingency, a plan Palpatine had in place to transfer his consciousness to a clone body already in Exegol, and that's how he survived, but the body was too weak, hence the creation of Snoke for the First Order, yada yada yada. Look, extended universe material is great and fun, and generally, I really enjoy it. But if you need your audience to do homework to understand your movie, you haven't made a good movie. So here comes our first big change. When Darth Sidious dies at the hands of his former apprentice Anakin Skywalker at the end of Return of the Jedi, he actually dies. So in our version of The Rise of Skywalker, we're going to keep the title crawl and the opening scene of Supreme Leader Kylo Ren discovering the Sith Wayfinder. This leads him to Exegol and the scene unfolds like in the movie, with one major difference. When Kylo comes into the cave and says,
I'll kill you.
And from the shadows comes the voice of Emperor Palpatine, saying, "You cannot kill what is dead already." And Palpatine reveals himself to Kylo Ren, not a man, but a Force Ghost. The first Sith Force Ghost the galaxy has ever seen. Obviously, the return of Darth Sidious was a last-minute addition to the movie, since there was absolutely no foreshadowing of this during The Last Jedi. Director Rian Johnson pissed off a lot of fans with his movie, and so Disney, desperate to regain their favor, re-enlisted beloved Star Wars actor Ian McDiarmid to once again take up his role of the Emperor, retroactively making him the sequel trilogy's primary antagonist. Now, although Palpatine's character is a bit played out, there is something poetic and unifying about making Darth Sidious, the corrupter of Anakin Skywalker, the antagonist of the entire Skywalker saga. However, the way that J.J. Abrams went about bringing him back was, ultimately, just lazy. The lack of explanation about his survival was confusing, and the fact that he survived at all makes the audience feel cheated because it takes the emotional weight away from when Vader reclaims his identity as Anakin Skywalker by killing his former master. At the end of Abrams' Rise of Skywalker, Anakin's ghost speaks to Rey, saying she has to restore the balance to the Force as I once did. Which begs the question, if Anakin didn't actually kill Darth Sidious, how exactly did he restore balance to the Force? Therefore, in order to bring Sidious back as the studio demands, and preserve continuity, Darth Sidious will be revealed to have been pulling the strings of the First Order from beyond the grave. Now, it's my understanding that in the current Star Wars canon, there are no Sith Force Ghosts, because the Sith are supposed to be obsessed with life. However, I believe that making Palpatine the exception to this rule will serve to make him all the more unique and add to his character's legend. Darth Sidious, the Sith whose hate was so strong it kept him bound to the mortal plane after death. Furthermore, his appearance as a Force Ghost has all to do with his obsession with life, but we'll return to that later. The movie continues otherwise unaltered until Kylo Ren encounters Rey and Pisana and she strikes down his fighter. "Hello there," she says with a cocksure grin as he emerges from the wreckage. This brings us to our second big change of the movie. Instead of telling her unceremoniously and borderline cringingly that she is a Palpatine, Kylo only cryptically tells her that although her parents were nobodies, her bloodline is unique, which is why they've developed into a dyad in the Force. Although he doesn't quite understand why, Kylo and Rey's bloodlines share a bond. He once again urges her to join him, which she rejects. The movie moves forward again until Kylo and Rey once again meet on the remains of the Death Star, but this time their duel is juxtaposed with the First Order fleet amassing at the Resistance base. As their duel continues, both parties begin to feel something amiss until Kylo figures it out. Palpatine has betrayed Kylo and, without his knowledge, ordered a strike on the Resistance base with the express intent of killing General Leia. General Leia dies in the battle, giving her life so that others may escape. Rey feels a great sense of loss at her death, but Kylo becomes overtaken with rage. His fury is greater than it's ever been, and he begins to lash out blindly. He steps up to the throne of the Death Star, where red winds begin to coalesce, and he's all of a sudden drawn to the throne, where an insidious crackling is heard. It has been a ruse all along. After the murder of his mother, Kylo's rage has consumed him so much that he's given himself over completely to the dark side and left himself vulnerable to Palpatine. Palpatine's Force Ghost usurps Kylo's body from him and takes it over, thus completing Palpatine's plan decades in the making. Darth Sidious has returned to the living, placed himself at the head of the soon-to-be new Galactic Empire, and completed his revenge on the Skywalker bloodline in one fell swoop. As this tragedy unfolds before her eyes, Rey can make out the blurry Force ghost of Anakin Skywalker looking on and screaming. Taking advantage of her shock, Darth Sidious, now wielding the incredibly Force-strong body of Ben Solo, hurls her out of the Death Star into the ocean with the Force, and calls for a pickup from the First Order on his comm. Sidious leaves to do the things he does in the movie, and Rey goes off to Ahch-To. She gets there and she encounters the Force ghost of Luke Skywalker, except their encounter goes a bit differently than in the film. He apologizes for how cynical he was when they first met, and tells her there's someone she must meet, the Jedi Master who first trained me. And so before her appears the Force ghost of Obi-Wan Kenobi, who Luke introduces as her grandfather.
Hello there.
Obi-Wan goes on to tell her about what an honor it is to meet her. He tells her about how he had a child in secret whose mother took and never trained as a Jedi. Luke had sought out Obi-Wan's son and offered to train him, but Rey's father opted for a peaceful life with his wife instead. They then go on to explain how, as a Sith Force ghost, Palpatine has been interfering with the light side's Force ghost ability to communicate with the living, which is why he hadn't contacted her until now, why the Force ghost of Anakin never set Ben Solo straight, and why Yoda was only able to reach Luke because Palpatine had been distracted by Kylo Ren killing Snoke in the last movie. They also explain that it was Sidious's influence that tempted Luke to consider killing Ben in the flashback from The Last Jedi. Next, let's fast forward to the final battle on Exegol. After dispatching the Knights of Ren, Rey faces down Emperor Palpatine, who is wearing the body of Ben Solo. They battle and Palpatine tries to make her his apprentice. Rey implores Ben Solo that despite everything he's done, she still feels the good in him. That him becoming Kylo Ren was all because of Sidious's deception. Palpatine's hold, however, remains unshaken, and they battle. Emperor Kylo prepares to strike her down, and in doing so taunts her. So this is the end of the Jedi. Destined to die, scared and alone. To which he responds, "That's what you don't understand. Even in the midst of their followers, a Sith is always isolated. But a Jedi, even surrounded by the darkness, a Jedi is never alone." And so appear the ghosts of Qui-Gon, Yoda, Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Luke. They surround Emperor Kylo so that the ghostly figure of a woman can step forward. It is the figure of General Leia Organa Skywalker Solo, and she marches up to Palpatine. Even though Palpatine doesn't know her, there is a flicker of recognition in the eyes of Ben. Who are you?" he asks, terrified. And she replies,
"Someone who loves you."
And rips the ghost of Palpatine from the body of her son. But she struggles. For a moment it looks like she will fail until she's helped by Ben Solo, regaining consciousness and finishes pushing the twisted soul of Palpatine from his body. "Mother," he says, "tell Dad I'm sorry. That I love you. I love you both." "We know," she replies. Palpatine regroups and pushes the ghosts away with a force blast. and in he comes menacingly towards Rey. But then, the ghosts are upon him. First Yoda, then Qui-Gon, then Obi-Wan, and Luke, until finally, Sidious looks into the eyes of Anakin Skywalker, who says, "Goodbye, my old master," and binds his ghost for all time. The war is won, and Ben and Rey embrace. As they pick themselves up from the ground, the ghosts around them smile. The ghosts of Anakin and Obi-Wan stand in front of Ben and Rey respectively, with Luke in the middle, creating a parallel to Revenge of the Sith. Except this time, the Kenobi was able to save Skywalker from the dark side.
It's like poetry, so if they rhyme.
The ghosts smile approvingly and disappear. The two look up to the sky to see the Resistance victory. Ben thanks Rey for not giving up on him, but expresses concern that the galaxy won't accept him. Rey assures him that it will take time, but the galaxy will come to know who Ben Solo truly is. Ben looks up to the stars and promises that he will earn his second chance. So, these are the changes that I would have made to The Rise of Skywalker. Now, do these changes fix the sequel trilogy? No, it does not. But I do think it improves the movie and mitigates the damage that the Star Wars sequels have done to the overall lore. This movie has so many problems, from plot contrivances to cheap takebacks to moments that make no sense but were added solely for nostalgia purposes, that I would need to rewrite these movies from the ground up, starting with The Last Jedi, in order to really save the sequel trilogy. But that'll have to wait for a future video. But in the meantime, what do you think of the changes I made? Do you like my version better or worse than the movie that we got? And what would you have done if given the chance? Be sure to let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and hit that bell for notifications. And remember, this is never the end. So I'll see you all next time.